Emily Sanders had always believed that love, if true, would withstand anything. That belief shattered the moment she discovered the lipstick stain on her husband's shirt, a color she never owned. She stood in the laundry room, frozen, staring at the collar like it had just screamed a confession. The silence of the house pressed in around her, and with it came the final blow to a marriage already hanging by a thread. Her husband, Jake, had grown distant over the past year. Once thoughtful and full of affection, he now came home late, avoided eye contact, and was always glued to his phone. When she confronted him, he always had the same cold reply, "You're overthinking." But now, there was no overthinking. There was a stain. There was perfume on his coat. There was a credit card charge for a hotel she'd never visited. And there was her heart, bruised, cracked, and utterly tired. That night when Jake walked through the door, Emily didn't scream, she didn't cry, she simply said, "I want a divorce." He blinked. "What?" "I said," she repeated calmly, "I want a divorce. I'm done pretending. You don't love me anymore, and I won't keep living like this." Jake didn't fight it. He didn't apologize. He didn't even deny it. He just stared at her for a moment before muttering, "Fine, maybe it's for the best." It was that lack of resistance that hurt her most. The divorce happened quickly. No children, no real assets to fight over. They signed papers in silence, sitting in a cold office where the only warmth came from Emily's trembling hands holding a pen. She walked out into the sunlight with a hollow chest and a ring-shaped shadow on her finger. She moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, filled it with books and plants, and tried to stitch her heart back together with routine. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Weeks passed, and then the nausea began. At first, she thought it was stress, or maybe something she ate, but it kept coming. Morning after morning, she'd sit on the bathroom floor, clutching her stomach, breathless and confused. It wasn't until she realized her period was weeks late that the possibility dawned on her. She bought a test. She stared at the two pink lines in stunned silence. Pregnant. She was pregnant, with Jake's child. Her hands shook. She dropped the test into the sink and backed away like it had burned her. Her knees gave out and she sat on the bathroom floor, tears blurring her vision. How could this be happening? They had been so careful. Or maybe they hadn't. Maybe during one of those last attempts to save the marriage, a desperate night when she had hoped intimacy could fix what was broken, this little life had begun. Now what? She was alone, divorced, starting over, and pregnant. Emily didn't call Jake. Not yet. She needed time to think, to breathe, to understand what she wanted. The idea of raising a child terrified her. But even more terrifying was the idea of bringing a baby into a toxic, broken environment. She had left that life to find peace. She didn't want her child to grow up in emotional chaos. Over the next few days, she found herself talking to the little being inside her, hands resting protectively on her belly. "I don't know what we're doing," she whispered one night, "but I promise I'll try. I'll do better for you." And with those words, something inside her shifted, not in fear, but in strength. She scheduled a doctor's appointment. She cleared out a drawer for baby things. She researched single mother forums and prenatal vitamins. Emily began building a new chapter. Not for Jake, not for what was lost, but for herself and the tiny heartbeat growing within her. And still she hadn't told Jake. But the day was coming. She knew she couldn't keep it from him forever. He had a right to know, even if he had forfeited every right to her heart. It took Emily another 3 weeks to build up the courage. 3 weeks of silent preparation, of growing used to the idea that she wasn't just Emily Sanders, the heartbroken ex-wife. She was a mother now, even if her belly had barely started to show, even if no one knew but her. She had spoken to her doctor, started eating healthier, and even told her closest friend Claire, who cried, hugged her, and whispered, "You've always been stronger than you think." But Emily knew she couldn't avoid Jake forever. It wasn't about giving him a second chance. That door had closed, but he had a right to know. And their child would one day ask. She didn't want to lie. She didn't want secrets. So one Saturday morning, she typed the message, "Jake, we need to talk. It's important." She stared at it for 5 minutes before pressing send. He replied 10 minutes later. "What's going on? Are you okay? Can we meet somewhere private? Coffee shop on 8th and Main? I'll be there." That afternoon, they sat across from each other for the first time in nearly 2 months. The cafe buzzed with quiet conversations and clinking cups, but between them was a silence so heavy it felt like gravity itself had shifted. Jake looked tired, less polished than before. His button-down shirt was wrinkled, and his usual smug confidence had faded into something closer to wariness. "You look good," he said awkwardly, trying to break the ice. Emily didn't smile. "I didn't ask to meet for small talk." He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "So what's this about?" Emily reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. The ultrasound photo tucked safely inside. She placed it on the table, gently sliding it across to him. Jake stared at it, confused, then picked it up. He went pale. Is this real?" "It's from my first scan. I'm 11 weeks. Her voice was calm, but her heart pounded. "You're going to be a father, Jake." He sat back, stunned. The photo trembled in his hands. "But we're divorced. We signed the papers. "I didn't know then," she interrupted. "I found out weeks after we separated." Silence again. Jake swallowed hard. "Are you keeping it?" Emily looked at him. Really looked. "Yes, I am." He nodded slowly, still dazed. "Wow, I didn't see this coming." "I didn't either." Jake lowered his gaze. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything today," Emily replied, folding her hands on the table. "I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for us to get back together. I just needed you to know. That's it." Jake looked up. "But what if I want to be involved?" She didn't expect that. Emily paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "Involved how?" "I don't know. Doctor's visits? Picking names? Being there when it happens?" He sounded hesitant, like even he wasn't sure of his words. She sighed. "Jake, this isn't about you fixing something out of guilt. It's not about playing dad for redemption." "I know," he said quickly, "but I want to try. I messed up. With us. I won't pretend I didn't. But this is my child too." Emily didn't answer right away. She stirred her coffee, watching the milk swirl like storm clouds. Then she said softly, "You can be in the baby's life if you're consistent, if you're honest. But this time, Jake, I'm putting our child first. I won't let anyone break them the way we broke each other." Jake looked like he wanted to say something, maybe even apologize, but he held it in. That day ended with no promises, no hugs, just an understanding. Over the next few weeks, Jake tried. He showed up at appointments. He read baby books. He even asked if Emily needed anything, though she rarely said yes. But trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. Emily still had bad days. Days where she questioned whether she could do this alone, whether she could let Jake near their child and not fall apart from old wounds. Yet something had shifted. She wasn't bitter, just careful. One evening, Jake waited for her outside the clinic. It had been a long appointment. She was nearing the second trimester, and everything was starting to feel more real. As they walked together in silence, he glanced over and asked, "Do you ever regret it?" She stopped. "The baby?" "No, us, walking away." Emily looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled faintly. "I regret how much I tried to make it work when it was already broken." Jake nodded slowly, guilt etched on his face. "But," she added, "if I hadn't, I wouldn't have this." She placed her hand gently over her stomach, and for the first time in months, Jake smiled too. Emily's third trimester brought with it a kind of quiet strength she hadn't known she was capable of. She was heavier now, slower, but strangely more at peace. She had gotten used to the rhythm of her new life. Solo baby shopping trips, prenatal yoga, late-night cravings for pickles and vanilla ice cream. She had grown fond of the creaky old apartment that smelled like lavender and cinnamon, the hand-me-down crib she'd painted herself, and the growing stack of baby books on her nightstand. But perhaps most surprising of all was Jake. He hadn't disappeared. He was still awkward, still unsure, but he had shown up. Consistently. Every appointment, every check-in, every "Do you need anything today?" text. He never tried to talk about their past, never asked for more than she was willing to give. Sometimes she caught him staring at her belly with this strange mixture of fear and awe, as though still trying to comprehend that life, his child, was growing inside the woman he had once taken for granted. One cold December evening, they were assembling the baby stroller in her living room. Jake struggled with the wheels, muttering curses under his breath, while Emily watched from the couch, laughing softly. "This thing is more complicated than my old motorcycle," he grumbled. "You had a motorcycle?" she teased. "Yeah, back when I thought I was cool." Emily rolled her eyes but smiled. The moment felt light, easy, almost like they were just two friends getting ready for something big. Jake looked up suddenly. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on what it is." He hesitated. "Do you think I'm capable of being a good father?" Emily didn't answer right away. She reached for a pillow, placing it under her back, then met his gaze. "I think you're learning. That's more than a lot of people do." Jake nodded, visibly relieved. I don't want to mess this up. I already ruined so much." Emily placed a hand over her belly. "Then don't. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up. Every day. Whether you feel ready or not." The words hung in the air, not just for him, but for herself too. Weeks later, as snow began to blanket the city, Emily went into labor. Jake was the one who drove her to the hospital, white-knuckling the steering wheel the whole way. He didn't leave her side. Not when she screamed, not when she cried, not even when she told him to shut up during a contraction. And when baby Liam finally arrived, pink and squirming, both of them cried. Jake held his son like he was made of glass, his eyes never leaving the tiny face. "He's perfect," he whispered. Emily, exhausted, looked at them and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Gratitude, not for Jake, but for herself, for surviving, for enduring, for having the courage to walk away and still believe in life after. The next few days passed in a blur of diapers, feeding schedules, and soft lullabies. Emily chose to return home with Liam alone. She wanted to start this chapter on her own terms. Jake understood. He didn't protest. Instead, he visited every day, always asking first, always offering help, but never overstepping. One quiet afternoon, Emily sat rocking Liam by the window. The baby slept soundly on her chest, his tiny fingers curled against her sweater. Jake stood nearby, watching them. "You know," he said, voice low, "there was a time I thought success meant money, power, status. I spent years chasing that. But sitting here, watching you and him, I think this is what I should have been chasing all along." Emily looked up at him. "Then why didn't you?" Jake sighed. "Because I was stupid and afraid, and I didn't know what real love looked like until I lost it." There was a long silence between them. Then Emily spoke. "Do you love me, Jake?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes," she nodded slowly. "I believe you." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Then maybe we can—" "But," she interrupted gently, "I'm not ready to be anyone's wife again. Not yet. Maybe not ever." Jake's face fell slightly, but he nodded. "Okay, I understand." Emily stood, adjusting Liam in her arms, walking slowly over to him. "But," she continued, "you are his father, and you're doing a good job." That meant more to Jake than any romantic reunion ever could. Months passed. Emily and Jake co-parented peacefully. They weren't a couple, not in the traditional sense, but they were a team. Birthdays were celebrated together, Doctor visits were shared. Baby Liam grew up surrounded by love, even if his parents lived in different homes. And Emily? She found a quiet joy in her new life. She went back to work part-time, joined a mother's group, started painting again. Her world was smaller than the one she once imagined, but it was fuller, more real, more hers. One night, as Liam slept in his crib, Emily sat on her small balcony watching the stars. She thought about everything she had lost, everything she had gained, and she smiled. Because sometimes life doesn't give you the happy ending you planned. It gives you a new beginning, one you never saw coming.